Hi, this is Dan. It is November 12th, 2018, and today I'm discussing where Vancouver is in regards to the real estate cycle. Every real estate market goes through a cycle. This is a term used to describe a succession of similar events that affect the real estate market on a cyclical basis. This cycle is comprised of three different phases: the boom phase, followed by the slump phase, and finally the recovery phase. And within each of these three phases are three distinct and predictable stages: the beginning, the middle, and the end. While the progression of the cycle is predictable, the length of time spent in each cycle does vary. There's no exact science to predict the length of each phase, but we can look for evidence that indicates which phase and stage a market is in. So, where is Vancouver in this cycle? To help determine this, we look at the key drivers that indicate each phase. You have very likely heard that prices have been coming down in Vancouver, and this includes practically every area and for every property type. Inventory has been on the rise for about 9 straight months, and in many areas we're seeing a 4 to 5 year high in homes actively available. But what are the other clues? So the mortgage lenders have certainly tightened up their lending practices, and interest rates have risen 5 times since July. We're also seeing the rental numbers start to shift with a slight increase in vacancies, and the monthly rental rates are coming down. If you watch the news, you've likely noticed that the headlines indicate price corrections and that the market is falling. Each of these key drivers and market influencers point to the fact that Vancouver is in the slump phase of the real estate cycle, and that it has just entered the beginning stage of the slump phase. So that bears the question, what do I do with real estate in this phase? Well, let's start with buyers first. As a buyer, the power has clearly shifted into your court. You have more options than you've had in about 5 years, and you can certainly negotiate on price and terms. If you are looking for a home or an investment property, now may be the perfect time for you. Some detached homes are off as much as 25% from their highs, and condos and townhomes are 10 to 15% lower. And honestly, the market has not found the bottom yet. Price reductions are commonplace, and you can often pick up properties for well under the asking price. If you saw a property you liked last year for, say, $750,000, there's a good chance you can pick it up today for closer to $675,000. And you may be thinking that you'll continue to wait out the market until the bottom hits before you go looking for a property. Well, it's very hard to time the market. If you're going to be holding on to this property for 5, 8 years or longer, don't worry so much about the timing. Get into that property and enjoy it. Let the cycle do its thing. If history continues to repeat itself, holding on to that property for at least 5 years, the chances are you'll be selling it for more than you paid. When it comes to pricing, if you are looking at a property and you know how much you'd ultimately like to pay for it, it may be very worth putting in an offer at that price. If you don't get it accepted today, don't be surprised if that listing agent calls your realtor in a month or so asking, "Hey, is your buyer still interested in that property at their original offer price?" I'm seeing it all the time. For sellers, this market means you need to price sharp and get ahead of the curve. If you need to sell, make sure your property is priced just ahead of the market. If you price behind it, you'll end up chasing it down. I recently saw a scenario where there were 3 very similar units for sale in the same building. And when the third one came online, it was priced below the other 2. And sure enough, the next week, those original 2 had to do price reductions and price themselves below the third one. So what did the third one do? Drop the price below those 2. They were literally leapfrogging each other to the bottom. Now, they have all ultimately sold, but the one that was priced ahead of the curve sold first and for the most. So properties can still sell quickly if priced right, marketed professionally, and if you've done everything to maximize the value of the home. This means, having it in great shape, painted if it needs it, staged if it's vacant, and make sure it's clean and everything is working correctly. For investors, the slump phase means that you should avoid fix and flips, that the rent-to-own strategy is possible but tricky, and that buy and hold is ultimately your best bet. Or simply wait until the cycle moves into the later stages of the slump phase, or even the beginning of the recovery phase, where the real strategic investors make their moves. And There are, of course, other markets in the greater Vancouver area that are not in a slump phase, where if you're looking to make an investment soon, these areas may be worth looking into. I also want to touch on pre-sales. The pre-sale market has been outperforming the resale market 2 to even 3 times this year. Now, pre-sales are often considered one of the more speculative investments. It's very important that you get a firm understanding of when the pre-sale is expected to complete and where the economy and most importantly, where the real estate cycle will likely be at that time. If a building completes at the bottom of a slump phase, you may have to hold on to it longer than expected to see a good return. Adversely, seeing your pre-sale come to completion in the beginning of a boom phase will give you a number of good options whether you're looking to hold or exit. So, when will we know when Vancouver has moved into the next stage, or at least the middle, of the slump phase? The key indicators are that the real estate vacancies have hit a peak. We will also see some people forced to sell their properties by means of foreclosure, so pay attention for that word. All the good news stories about how much money people have made with their homes are now turning to stories about money that was lost. A general sense of fear can ensue within the marketplace. This stage is easy to recognize because the media headlines commonly reinforce the fact that it is now cheaper to rent than to own. You may hear the "I told you so's" from the people who didn't buy during the market rise. Market inventory will reach a peak and prices not seen in years will almost become commonplace. So how long until this happens? Well, while no one has a crystal ball, the current predictions lie somewhere around the 12 to 18 months time frame before we see the Vancouver market bottom out and begin its recovery. So in summary, Vancouver is in the early stages of the slump phase. It will, and always does, come out of this phase and will begin its recovery soon enough. Be smart with your real estate and plan accordingly, knowing what's coming next. Thank you so much for watching.